Hello again, welcome back, and thanks for sticking with us. You're nearly there, we're on the home straight, but hey, what a straight it's going to be. We're going to talk all things advisor technology now. We're going to look at the efficiencies that can be garnered in the advice process and take a look at the latest developments in this area, the latest trends, what's happening and what's not happening as well. In order to do that, we've got our very own Karl Dines, the head of Business Consultancy from SimplyBiz Investment Services, a man who likes nothing more than spending his time in an advisor office, ripping out all the different processes and building them all back again in the most efficient way possible. And we've got Nick Eatock here, founding director of Intelliflo, and a man responsible for an awful lot of the developments that go on out there in the marketplace around advisor technology. Gents, let's set the scene a little bit about what's been happening recently. One of the major events that's been happening since we last ran the advice show is around platform consolidation. We'd had one fairly significant move in the market earlier in the year with Standard Life and Elevate. We're now seeing Aegon and co-funds. Nick, is this the start of a trend that you've got your eyes on?
Yeah, I don't think consolidation is going to stop by any stretch. I think we're going to continue to see it. But from an advisor's perspective, I think the clear thing is to make sure that your business and your business model is protected against some of these changes and ensure that you have integrations across the marketplace. So if you needed to move at some point, you could do so. The reality is, I think if platforms and practice management systems work well together, actually, this doesn't need to be a threat to any advisors. Is
platform consolidation real, or is it brand consolidation?
Well, I think the jury's still out on that, isn't it?
No.
So I think so far we've seen brand consolidation for sure. The challenges and the costs of moving platform tech from one system to another, I don't think should be underestimated. Having said that, with some of the more recent ones, and certainly my understanding of, for example, some of the work businesses like Aegon are doing with co-funds, I think they have actually a very aggressive plan to move the capability across, and as I understand it, that's going all pretty well. So I think it can be done, but clearly initially it will always start with brand consolidation rather than...
Clearly the nirvana's got to be not just, let's put two businesses together, give it one brand, get rid of half the staff, but still have two platforms that we need to run. It's got to be actually all the assets in one place to generate scale for people.
Yeah, very much so. But I think some of the principal challenges that businesses are finding or will find in the platform space is that no two platforms actually are the same. They all do different things. They all have their slightly different bells and whistles. So if you do consolidate the technology, are you going to lose something along the way that you used to have in platform B and now it's come into platform A you might lose? I don't know. I think those will be the challenges there. The whole ecosystem, if you like, has to build itself up to actually protect against that.
And are they demonstrating any better ability from a technology perspective in the platform operators that you're seeing? I'm thinking in particular about, there's a very high profile case at the moment of an awful lot of money that's been spent re-platforming that is now a project that's been quashed at Old Mutual with, and if you look in the press you'll see a fantastic sum of money per client on the platform that that's cost. The technology and the ability to deliver the proper technology in the background behind the front of these platforms is a very real impact on performance for some clients, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, it's clearly not it's not an inexpensive game, this that we definitely have seen. But I think the drive for all of these businesses is absolutely to move to better tech. How expensive and how problematical it is to move there, question. That's definitely a challenge. But once they've made that transition and that journey, hopefully we'll see an industry and an environment in which there is better tech. But I do think part of that, looking to what we do as a business, is about doing the bits that we do really well, where advisors use, and advisors use our solution for between 4 and 7 hours every single day. So it's pretty relevant to them. So if we can make that join, that link with the platforms that they've chosen as seamless as possible, then actually what an advisor needs from the tech can be delivered by both ends of the spectrum. It's not all about the platform, it's not all about the practice management system, it's a joining together.
Karl, out there at the in the very real coalface of individual advisory firms, is platform consolidation causing practical issues day to day or not?
It depends really on the sort of IFAs you're actually looking at and how embedded their processes and their advice process is with their platform of choice. In an ideal world, you want to have an agnostic position with regard to the platform you're using, simply because you do see movements within the market. And something that you mentioned earlier, Nick, was the fact that there is nuances within platforms which differentiate them from each other. So as long as an IFA has got this idea of I'm independent and I will make sure I've got the right platform to produce the right outcomes for clients, then the consolidation argument shouldn't really come into it. They should be slick enough and quick enough to be able to say, in this particular circumstance, we're going on A platform or B platform or C platform. But the bigger picture is, if that platform falls out of favour for whatever reason, then you should be sleek enough to be able to say, I'm not going to use that platform anymore, I'm going to use this one. So the consolidation element affects mainly the platforms more than it does the end result for the IFA and for the client, because the client should be getting the best possible outcomes.
Are you still seeing lots of firms though where they've built an investment process and an investment service specifically around a platform?
Absolutely. If you read up on the FCA fact sheets, which is fact sheet 11 and fact sheet 12, what it basically says there is you should be using a platform that's best suited for your clients. If you're using a platform that's best suited for your clients, you're going to have a spectrum of clients from young clients who are just starting to invest to retirees and those in retirement. And therefore different platform features will benefit clients in different ways. So going down the route where you're running a platform purely because it's ease of administration from the advisor, maybe isn't the best place to be.
Okay. Nick, what are the things that, in terms of platforms, advisors should be keeping their eyes out on? And one of the examples that I give, I'll over to you to whether you think it is relevant, something they should be considering. But where a fund manager, for example, might have inside their supply chain, they're going to have custodian of their assets, they're going to have a transfer agent who's looking over the ins and outs within a fund. Mm-hmm. If there are developments at that level of the supply chain, whereby clients and advisors can get real look through into the holdings within a fund, is there a development there in technology that could be a counter to the dominance of platforms for holding assets, or do you think the platforms will still maintain that position as being the place to hold the client assets?
That's a really good question, because I think that could play out a number of different ways. The reality is that at the moment the platforms act as a great aggregator of the different investment solutions out there. They create a great environment to do that. But part of the challenge, I think, for them as organisations is simply because of that. When you're working with lots and lots of third parties in terms of investment fund managers, actually the complexity of the whole process becomes much harder to deal with. Whereas if you got individual investment managers coming out with a simpler solutions, then I could see how that technically could work, and certainly from a service and efficiency perspective, it would work pretty well. The challenge I think you've then got is putting all your eggs into the basket of a single investment manager at different times may or may not suit what most advisors want to do. Discretionary managers, I think we'll see more innovation in that sector. I think that will be really quite interesting. Mm-hmm. And I would probably, if I was sat in a platform shoes, and I'm not, but if I was, I'd probably be more concerned about what the discretionary managers are going to do in terms of the marketplace and their route to access. Just to pick up on one point though that Karl raised, and he was absolutely spot on, is that actually if you're choosing your platform or platforms on the basis of the technology and how they integrate and how they ease the administration of your business, then you're missing the point. But by the same token, if you don't have that bit, then you're also missing the point. So I think the integrations between systems there will become absolutely the hygiene factor that you just expect, just as you can expect to switch the light switch and the light comes on. You just expect that to happen. I think then, once you've got that in place for a broad brush of platforms out there between platforms and practice management tech, then you can say, right, okay, what's the most appropriate solution for my client in these particular circumstances, and choose from choose from those businesses.
So can a good advice process should it focus entirely on the client in terms of the choice of platform, or is it feasible and within best practice to build in advisory practice facing criteria into the platform selection?
Yeah, absolutely. It should be of benefit both to the clients and also to the advisor. The FCA basically stipulate that if you have a particular platform choice, it must provide good client outcomes. So the client outcomes first, and then after that you'd have your own personal preferences with regards to the platforms after that. So you may have a selection of, say, 3 or 4 different platforms that a firm would use, all with the underlying benefit of providing good working practices for the firm. But sat above that is the criteria which would be available for the particular client, which may mean that one certain platform is best for, say, someone who has got a family where there's different investments within the family, so family grouping would be important, or pre-funding might be important for another particular client. So you should have a range of almost off the peg fund administration units, which you can say this one's best for you and this one's best for you, but both of them are also good in my eyes as well. Yeah. And again, picking up on something you mentioned, Nick, the actual interface between, say, your software, which is the hub of the business, and any platforms or investment houses out there should be a hygiene factor, which it hasn't been in the past. But getting these two systems to talk to each other means you're not going to be intrinsically tied into one particular platform. So that idea of the best benefit is for the administration of the IFA should be somewhere down the line, and almost incidentally it's just going to work anyway because it's hygiene.
Okay. Another trend recently in the last couple of months in this space, in the technology space, has been the arrival of the world's largest asset manager in the UK with a D2C service. Yeah. Is this the point at which the D2C market, if not matured, left its infancy and maybe ended up in adolescence in the UK market, or is it still earlier days than that?
It's probably earlier days than that, in my view, but I think it's a massive a statement of intent and arrival what Vanguard have done there, and I think they, in the D2C marketplace, they will create a very differing environment, which is largely being owned by 1 or 2 big players at the moment. So I think it'll be fascinating to see what happens there. I think what's of more interest to the advisor, though, is if Vanguard looks to bring some of its personal advisory services that are very effective and successful out in the States, if they bring those over here, because I think that will create a very different environment. And just for those people who may not be clear on what they've got there, they've got a very joined up, technologically driven process which allows them to scale advice to more clients. I think advisors in the UK need that. The reality is we have 31,000 odd UK advisors, depending on which metrics you use, but whoever's metrics you use, those numbers are down from where they were a few years ago. And we're now living in an environment where more and more people need financial advice. So if we're going to do something that is good and is right here, we need to work out how to scale advice. And I think these efficiencies that we're talking about are absolutely fundamental.
So beyond being Vanguard and having a slick system, what are the ways in scaling and creating efficiency that we're seeing with the smaller advisory firm?
So for me, I think the biggest factor that I've seen over the last couple of years now is digital, and is about engaging with the customer in ways in which they wish to be engaged with. And Karl and I were talking about this a little bit before we came on. Fundamentally, clients are people first and clients second. So the experiences they have in their lives, in everything else that they experience, whether it's buying something through Amazon Prime or doing their shopping online, all of those, that's how they kind of expect to interface these days. And the more we can recognise that as individuals, the more we can play a part in delivering that kind of capability, that kind of single click, single access, 24/7 availability, the more we're going to be relevant to the end client of the future. And that's not just about the young. Whilst they are more tech savvy, it's not just about them. You know, I know, so we have a client portal called PFP. We've got tens of thousands of clients go onto that every single day. And our oldest client is 97 years of age. I was informed of this by an advisor just a few weeks ago, and this client, I don't know his name, but he asked to have he sent a secure message to his advisor in advance of an integrated video chat, which he asked for. Isn't that fantastic? You know, and all of that is just enabling both the client and the advisor of the future.
The ironic thing is when I go and do consultancy with firms and we talk about their use of technology, what we find is they're not spending enough time or money in order to understand the software they're using. So they'll use it probably around about 10 or 15% of its capability, use spreadsheets and certainly use pen and paper. That's within the business. Then they'll go home and they'll do the shopping using a mobile phone. Then they'll go home and they'll buy stuff on Amazon Prime, which flies through the window next day on a drone. They do all that, but then we, as an industry, we don't seem to be grasping the fact that end users want a better experience than they currently get from firms. And the only way that an IFA can deliver that better experience is to understand the software they're using, spend time and money actually getting to grips with it in a proper manner. Only then will your 97-year-old be able to sort of really interact with his IFA in a way that he wants to, which is going to drive customer loyalty for a start. And it's going to make an IFA head and shoulders above quite a lot that I see out there.
So what are the practical steps then? I'm conscious that, you know, we're sitting here and it's easy to say these are the things at the high level that should be done. What's the practical steps that a firm can take that if you were sitting in their office right now?
Basically, we design client, investment and supplier propositions, which is how they charge and why they charge, what investment solutions you have, and then which products and platforms you're going to use to help deliver them solutions. Taking that all back and stripping it right back to the basics, and then basically saying how technology fits into that right the way along the line, from your first interaction with a client to a client being seeing them on a regular ongoing basis, and how you can engage with them and get your pieces of software, whichever they're going to be, to actually work within the business. So it's literally going 3 steps back to say, let's fundamentally see how my business works and what processes we've got in place, and then introducing the software into that, whatever software they're going to use.
What percentage of the capability of the tool set that you've built and designed for advisors do you think is actually getting utilised day to day? I know they're doing 4 to 6 hours a day, but of what? How much is it being used?
Yeah, no, it's again, I mean, one of the benefits of having a software as a service-based technology is that we see what everyone's doing. So we capture 1 billion clicks a year of our software, and 1 billion clicks a year gives you an awful lot of information about what people are using and what they're not. And the reality is that what they're using differs enormously from one advice firm to the other. We did a piece of work about 2 years ago now with a business, an American business called Hobson's. And what Hobson's do is they specialise in looking at the return on investment, the efficiency that advice businesses get from their technology. And they talked to about 2,000 of our users and asked them questions about how they use it, what they get, and just try to sort of unpeel the onion and understand underneath that really what were those efficiencies. And we saw efficiencies range from 100% ROI right up to 600% ROI. So, you know, even at the low end it was pretty good, but at the top end it was outstanding. And the single biggest difference of those firms at the top end to the bottom end was adoption. They just adopted the software. So we see anywhere from 10 to 15% adoption right up to 60, 70, 80% adoption. And you know, that's it's a great lesson in understanding what you're doing, realizing that the software underneath you know, you may have bought your software solution 3 years ago, but the chances are it's evolved enormously over that time. We do enhancements into our software every single day, 3 or 4 enhancements every single day. So unless you're having some eye on that, and you don't need to look every day, but maybe once a month, having a look and seeing, right, how has the software evolved in the last month? And are there any bits of that that I really want to adopt? Because the chances are there will be some and you can change. And the one thing I'd really implore advisors to do is not be fearful of change. You know, and quite the reverse actually. You know, the great, although sorry lesson of the fact that Blockbuster's threw away an incredible global position because they didn't change in the recognition of Netflix and others. They didn't change their business model. Is a real, I think that's a real lesson to us all.
It was, but it was fun walking the aisles of Blockbuster, working out which you were going to pick there.
It certainly, it was.
The simple efficiencies, Karl. I get that there are macro, bigger pictures of what advisors could be doing, but what are the simplest efficiencies that you're putting in place for firms at the moment? What are the real quick wins rather than a long-term process of changing to a new way of servicing clients through digital, etc. But what are the simplest quick wins at the moment?
Really simple win, and this goes along the line that Nick was talking about when you're looking at the software and how it develops, is getting, say, Intelligent Office to talk to Dynamic Planner, which are both obviously available at a discounted rate through SimplyBiz memberships or part of the fee for Dynamic Planner. And literally, rather than saying, doing your fact find information over here and then rekeying fund information for Dynamic Planner to do the risk profile, get them to talk to each other. And there's a very, very simple way to actually do that, which takes around about 30 seconds to do. But it means you can get, say, 30 or 40 different funds from Intelligent Office into Dynamic Planner to do the risk rating in a matter of minutes. I went to see a particular firm in Preston about this, probably at this time last year, speaking to the power planner, and the power planner was telling me that they have to go and find the funds, find the city codes, put them into the system. If there was 15 funds for a pension and 15 funds for an investment, you're talking about finding 30 funds, and then you've got to find the right ones. And I showed her this quick and simple method of creating the data file, and she nearly fell off a chair, because all of a sudden what used to take her the best part of a day took her a matter of minutes. And that's a quick and easy way of showing how, by simply using the technology in a different way, you can really drive some efficiencies into your business. That power planner now spends an extra, say, 4 or 5 hours of a day actually doing stuff which is more important to the firm, because she's doing stuff which is enhancing the client experience rather than sat there keying in funds. And that is just one really quick fix to do it. There's plenty more.
And think of that from the customer's perspective. If the end customer realised that their firm was the firm of advisors that they had engaged with was spending a lot of time doing this manual effort to try and do one thing from another, they'd be horrified, because indirectly they're paying for that.
Yeah.
And actually, unless you start adopting this kind of stuff, you're not going to be able to scale your advice business. Whether you think that's the right thing or the wrong thing, there's certainly the opportunity out there. The biggest problem I find, and it'd be interesting to hear Karl's views on this, but when I speak to advisors around the country, is that unless they've adopted the tech, what they typically will say to the 151st client that comes through the door is, sorry, we're full up. Yeah, that can't be right. Okay, there's going to be an upper limit somewhere, but don't make that upper limit be there because of poor admin. Make it there because that you want it to be there.
If you think about one other efficiency which you can drive into the business, again, is the use of software, especially on an app or on a device. Take, for instance, attitude to risk questionnaire. You can go the old-fashioned way where you would do it on a paper format, get it filled out, go back to the office and put it into your risk profiling tool, find out that actually some of the questions weren't asked the way that they should have been, have to go back to the client's then wondering where we're at because it's been a couple of days, and then actually not being able to ascertain the risk the client's willing and able to take for maybe 3 or 4 days after that event. The simple use of a device like we've got here on the table means you could actually sit down there and eyeball the client and immediately have them conversations and them questions. And then once you agree the risk you got with the client actually in the room, after say half an hour or so, get that device to upload the stuff into the software. And then that becomes a much more better client experience for a start, but it also means you become a lot more slick and a lot more efficiency, saving yourself another hour or so, I would imagine.
Fantastic. If this is the sort of thing that floats your boat, then the SimplyBiz Investment Services conferences, as we mentioned earlier, are coming your way, and there is going to be a technology session there and a technology debate for you to get involved in, and also the efficient advice process workshops run by none other than Mr. Dines are out and about around the country as well. Thank you very much for your input and your efforts today. You've been amazing. It's been emotional. I'll see you next time on The Advice Show. Thank you very much indeed.